Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. Have you ever noticed how the way you feel in your body shows up in your dating life? Well, I've worked with so many clients who grapple with this. There was this one client that I worked with, and every time she was going on a date, she was second guessing herself. And she would sit across from a man, and instead of being present and playful and flirtatious, her inner dialogue was on repeat. Like, do I look fat in this dress? Or is he staring at my arms? Or should I have ordered the salad instead of a pasta? Like, all these like monkey chatter was going on in her head. And the reality is that he wasn't thinking any of this. But it was her own kind of, feelings about herself, and it would self-sabotage a lot of her dates. And she told me later that the hardest part wasn't finding the dates. It was actually feeling confident enough to let someone close and get close to her when she was at war with her body and her eating habits. And by the way, this isn't just women. I've been working with a lot of men who deal with this too. Recently, I was working with a man, and we did a man-over, as I call it, and he had such self-worth issues because of his body weight. His whole life, he was bullied as a kid, and now he sits in his mid 50s, never dated anybody. And it was all because he was thinking he just wasn't good enough, that he wasn't handsome enough. He wasn't, cool enough, and whatever it was. So the first thing I had to help him with, he went to one of my retreats, was to get over himself, because he was his own worst enemy. And we did that by, well, obviously at the retreat, he had a community of people who kept debunking his own myths and saying what a great guy he was. And then I did a man over with him, and we got him some new clothes, and he looked at himself. And the funniest thing he said to me, he's like, wait a second, nice guys don't look like that. I said, nice guys dress well. It's that, so he had this like almost association that like the bad boys looked awesome, And so there, again, this was his own self-sabotage. Well, I just got a text from him that, he's gotten courage to ask this woman out, and they are going on a couple dates. This is more than he has ever done in his entire life. So again, like these are these things that can be barriers or love shields, as I call them. And it's something I see over and over again when emotional eating and body image struggles take center stage. It's hard to access that sexy confidence that makes dating fun. And instead of showing up radiant and magnetic and flirty, you tend to shrink or hide or overcompensate. And the truth is, emotional eating often gets worse when you're dating. The pressure to look a certain way, the anxiety before meeting someone new, the letdowns when things don't work out, and all of that can trigger the cycle. And some women tell me they actually reward themselves with food after a great date, while others confess they binge after rejection or ghosting. So it can happen both ways. And for many, food and weight actually become a shield. I alluded to that before. Carrying extra weight can unconsciously serve as a protection against intimacy, because deep down, it's actually a fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of getting hurt again, fear of attracting abuse if that has been in your history. And if you stay hidden behind the food, behind the body image struggles, then you don't have to risk being vulnerable with love. But of course, that also keeps you from the very connection and joy you're craving. So you're in this like constant tug of war with yourself. So that is why I'm so excited about our guest today. She is going to help me talk more about emotional eating and how that impacts dating. She is an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert and podcast host of No Sugarcoating. I love that title. With 12 years experience helping high-achieving women create a level of body confidence, intuition, and optimal health through powerful mindset healing, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. And she overcame her own emotional eating. She has an amazing story. After gaining and losing more than 1,000 pounds and spending over 50K on binge foods and spending 5 years balancing her hormones and digestion. And she's also going to talk about how that all affected her dating life too. We were talking off air. And now she helps others achieve the biggest healing miracles of body freedom so that they have the confidence and health to create amazing lives. Welcome, Amber Romaniuk. Did I say it right?
You did. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for coming. I was telling you off air, I'm just super excited about this conversation because I think it's something that so many people struggle with. And I know you have a story. So, oh my gosh, please, if you could share more of that story and how you got into all of this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this was not my plan that this was my life's purpose. I planned to go to school to be an entertainment reporter. So my life took a 360 when I fell deep into the dark hole of binge eating, bulimia, food addiction, and emotional eating. And so for me, a couple of key things that led me to that point when I was 5, it was my first day taking the school bus, and the older boys called me fat and ugly. And then the whole bus made fun of me. And that was a very traumatizing, hurtful moment. And I took that identity on for the next 20 years of my life. And also, I was the only child. My parents were lovely. They always did the best they could growing up. But my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born. And so I think we revolved a lot of our relationship around food because I think she felt guilty. There's a lot of things we couldn't do because of her symptoms. And so food was a way to compensate. And she also had a food addiction. I just didn't realize it until I healed my own and noticed the habits, the behaviors that she was in as well. It's not a judgment, but just it was a lineage and some of it was innocently passed down. And then you get into your tweens and your teens and you start looking at your body and comparing yourself and going, what's wrong with me? I'm not as thin as the girls in school. They're getting more attention from boys. I'm not going to get love unless I'm thin and pretty and look perfect. I'm not going to have success or money or anything that I want. And these are some of the programs that I took on from what I observed going on around me, magazines you're reading, movies you're watching, right? Like it's always the pretty thin girl that wins and gets the attention. And so just all of this was so conditioned that I'm not good enough. I don't look good enough. I kind of, I'm a bit chubby and, people make comments about my weight. And so all of that just made me feel very insecure, unworthy. And then where things really kicked off deep into the binge eating and the self-sabotage with food was actually after my first real breakup. So I was 21 and I got broken up with, and obviously I was so hurt I could barely eat. And so I lost weight really quickly, started working out and under eating. I don't suggest either of those things, but I got to my goal weight really fast. And what the diet and weight loss industry had convinced me of and that I had convinced myself of was once I lose weight, I'll finally be happy and everything will be perfect. And I lost weight and nothing got better. Nothing was perfect. I wasn't happier. I wasn't more confident. In fact, I was just picking myself apart more critical. My period disappeared. My hormones were, completely going out of whack. And then it became unattainable, especially because I thought, oh, I'm going to lose the weight and he's going to want me back. And he didn't. And so it was just kind of like this screw it moment. Like, I don't care. Like, this isn't attainable. And then the switch flipped. And my first memorable binge was going to a barbecue, and I would always restrict and just eat the salad or whatever. And that night I had ice cream cake, and it just triggered this like, ooh, I want more. I already messed up, so I might as well just go to town and I'll fix it tomorrow. And so I had more ice cream cake, a burger. I stole the chocolate bar off the counter and went in the bathroom and ate it. That was for the s'mores for everybody. And then I left because I felt so much shame. And I got fast food and an ice cream cake on the way home and binged until I was so full I was sick. And so for me, I would binge. It was a full loss of control. I was eating until I was so full I was sick. I gained 80 pounds in 4 months and I became the heaviest that I had ever been. And I'm only 21 at the time. So, I should be out dating. I should be out socializing, but I shut down and I just stayed home. And aside from my crappy retail job, I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to meet anybody. I didn't feel good enough. I felt unlovable. I'm like, guys treated me so different when I was 125 pounds versus 185 pounds. They were opening the door for me, asking me out. And then when I gained weight, there was none of that. And there was just, and then so it was a kind of a shocking and interesting experience to see how differently I was treated based on my weight, which I don't agree with. I don't think that's fair. But anyways, so yeah, that huge weight gain and then just like falling deep into binge eating. I went through bulimia for 6 months. I really thought that if I purged, I wouldn't gain weight, but it just stressed my body out even more. And the purge, in my opinion, is just a full lack of ownership and responsibility, not owning what I've just done, which is the binge. I didn't know I was binge eating or in a food addiction until a couple of years in. Um, and it's kind of when I had my low point moment where I would throw the food in my garbage can because it would be a motivator to not go dig it out and eat it in my garbage. I'm like, I would never do that. Like, that's gross. And then one night after I had finished a binge and thrown the food in the garbage, I was laying on the couch crying because I had identified at this point I'm binge eating. I have a food addiction. Like, I'm obsessed with food. I'm upset because I can't lose the weight. I don't look good enough. I don't even know who I am. And just my health. I was so concerned for my health. Being 22 at the time, thinking I don't think I'm going to make 30 if I keep treating myself this way because it was so destructive physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. And so the food started to settle, and then the what I call the ego mind, the limiting inner critic came in and was like, well, if this is the last time you're going to do this, you might as well dig through the garbage and eat the food. And so I did. I dug through my blue garbage, grabbed the cookies, ate them, and then I threw them in the dumpster out in the back alley. And then I went back later and got them out of the dumpster. And that moment was my low point moment. But I needed that to happen because I was in denial that it was like my inner critic, and I was just like, it's not a big deal. Food's my friend, but it was a huge deal. It was costing me everything in my life. But it took that moment for me to like be honest with how serious my food addiction got. And I know not everyone gets to that point, but it really crushed my denial and it crushed my fear of the unknown. Like if I were to heal this or start working on this, I was just so afraid and I didn't know where to start. It was overwhelming. So I just kept in the cycle because it was what was comfortable. But it no longer was tolerable once I had that experience. And then I started on the journey, which was a lot of physical, mental, emotional healing, behavioral healing, emotion, energetic healing, spiritual healing, learning how to love myself, learning to identify my triggers, to detach my worth from the number on the scale and take my power back. And so there was many levels to that healing. And as I did that and I healed it myself, I was just so inspired. And I'm just like, wow, this is why I came here. And this is why I went through this, because I'm here to help eradicate these behaviors from the planet, because too many women and men are struggling with them. And I don't feel there's a lot of proper resources and education out there. So if we can address from the roots and normalize educating on addressing from the roots and doing the inner healing, that is really what's going to help eradicate this from the planet. So that's what prompted me to start my business. And here we are 12 years later. And I'm so excited to just be sharing the story and just having the conversation so that the listeners know they're not alone if they're in any level of this, and that it doesn't have to be their secret that they hide in the closet.
Yeah, I know. So thank you for sharing that. Because I always say, like, our adversity, I mean, I have my own story too, is usually
Mm.
like a gift in disguise. It's not until
Yeah,
you're through it and you look back, you're like, oh, that's why,
yeah,
and then you can kind of pass the lessons you learned, through that
totally.
adversity. So, well, God, my mind was spinning as you were telling the story because there's a lot of things that come up and also like what I see people struggling with when you because obviously I love that you shared that rock bottom moment, when you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. What were some of the steps that you took to get out of that? Because, there are some people who never really get to that rock bottom,
Mm.
right? And they're just kind of floating in that state. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if there were some things that you did for yourself and maybe you help other clients with too to get out of it.
Yeah, 100%. And all of these things I help my clients do now. So it's funny, actually, the order in which I help my clients is a bit different than the way I approached it myself because I had no idea what I was doing. But the first thing was, I'm like, I'm so addicted to sugar. I cannot eat a small amount. I eat a bit and then I want to eat the whole room of sugar. Like, why? So I started learning about sugar, refined sugar, and learned that it was 10 times more addictive than cocaine. And that blew my mind because I'm like, I'm not crazy. What? There's foods and ingredients put in foods on purpose to make people addicted to them. It was mind blowing and it validated that I wasn't crazy. And so then I started to learn a little bit more about other foods that could be addictive. And I was addicted to cheese. I was addicted to bread. And like the gluten, which is the protein in wheat, and the casein, which is the protein in dairy, are so much more concentrated in North America. It gives you a huge drug like high, especially if you have addictive like personality or you have low neurotransmitters. And for those that are wondering, well, what are those? They're your mood boosting neurotransmitters that stabilize your mood, help you feel calm, happy, connected to yourself and others. And if you're consuming high volumes of food like I was, it suppresses those. And then we want to reach for the food even more to get comfort, to feel good, to numb, to soothe, to have pleasure, right? So starting to learn about those things was so fascinating. So I started to change the way that I ate, but it's when I started to change the way that I ate and improve the quality of my food that I realized I still want to binge on like 10 bananas and a jar of organic peanut butter. I still want to eat a whole container of goat cheese and brown rice pasta. So the quality of food's a lot better now, and I still want to do it. And that's when I really came to the realization that this journey was so much more emotional and
Mm.
behavioral. And I didn't love myself. So I had to get really lovingly honest with myself. I'm like, I don't love myself. I don't know how to love myself. I am still chasing the number on the scale. I don't feel good enough. I am terrified to feel anything because I'm numbing with food and I have no idea what's triggering me. So I was like, I better start figuring all of that out because I just had this like intuitive feeling of like you got to just keep figuring things out and learning. And so I started to identify all the different things that were triggering me to binge and emotionally eat. And this is one of the reasons so many women and men keep in these cycles. You don't know all your triggers. You may know some of them, but you likely don't know all of them. It's not just I'm sad or lonely, so I want to eat. There's hormone imbalances that significantly trigger emotional and binge eating, gut imbalances. If you're a sensitive empath, a people pleaser, a perfectionist, you're in burnout, right? There's so many potentials. And that's why we have to take a deep dive into that. And that's one of the first things I do with my clients. So started to figure out my triggers and write them down. And then I was like, okay, well, what do I do when I get triggered? So I started playing around with different self-care modalities like breath work, meditation, a bath, mindful movement, nature, all these different things, and just figuring out which ones work best for me. Because we all have that like top 5 to 10 list of what's going to work best for us. And so figuring that out is important. And one of the most powerful things was just sitting and feeling. I literally had
So glad
convinced
you said that.
myself, right,
Yeah.
that like the world was going to end if I felt. And so I just eased in and I was like, okay, just put a timer on for 30 seconds and just try. And so I did. And I was feeling fear at the time. And so I just sat and felt the fear for 30 seconds. And I was so proud of myself because I got to the other end of it and it was like, nothing bad happened. I feel good. Okay, I can feel. Okay, I'm gonna like, I feel more motivated to actually try and feel through things rather than shove them down with food. And so as I like kept catching triggers and identifying them and feeling and using my tools and started to see the binge eating go from almost daily to like once a week, once a month. The confidence that I built, the awareness that I was building about why I was behaving this way, that is really what catapulted me into fully overcoming and healing all of this, learning how to love myself, learning how to forgive myself, tending to my wounded inner child that I identified needed love as I was doing that healing. And then really helped me then get to the roots of kind of the next phases, which was dealing with all the hormone chaos that I had created through those behaviors, dealing with all the gut chaos that I had created and inflammation and blood sugar issues through those behaviors. And then realizing, wow, like I'm a sensitive empath. I love listening to people. I love holding space, but I also need to set healthy boundaries and learn how to not take on other people's stuff because otherwise then I'm stressed and then that makes me want to self-sabotage with food. So those are some of the next pieces of healing that I did. And then I started my business and it just, evolved from there. But those are key things that
Love
we
that.
must work on.
Yeah, those are great steps. I'm really glad you mentioned the whole emotional piece, like feeling what you're feeling, because I mean, I do a lot of emotional intelligence and my clients and how that applies to dating. And what I find is that a lot of times people don't even know what emotions they're feeling. And especially
No.
if you're a people pleaser, you're used to being more hyper focused on other people's needs
Yeah.
rather than your own feelings and thoughts because you're so busy trying to discern what other people and that's from family system, right? That's from early
Hmm.
on upbringing. Because there was one woman that I was working with, and it's exactly what you were talking about. And she was overweight in her whole life. It's a similar story to you, actually. And when I started working with her, she's like, Kimmy, I don't even know what feelings feel like at
Yeah.
all. And that is such an important part. I also wondered if you could touch on because I when I was a therapist, I did work with eating disorders and in the inpatient unit. So like it got bad, to the point where people would come in and they were hiding their throw up in radiators. Like I mean, it got to that extreme. And one thing that we all talked about is that sense of really it's about control.
Yeah.
And it
Totally.
has nothing like sometimes to do with like the actual weight or looking a certain way. It's just being in control in some
Yeah,
ways. Do you want to talk about that a little?
100%. It's
Yeah.
totally about control because the thing is when you feel insecure and unworthy and you don't feel good enough and you've been through experiences that are still like essentially dictating your identity and the way you feel about yourself and behave, and you feel out of control with your feelings, emotions, habits, maybe your body or weight, whatever it is. And so we are convinced that we can have control with food, whether I have control via a diet, counting my calories, controlling how many calories I burn, or when I get triggered, I have control over what I want to eat, how much, what kind of food, right? So there can be that like control rebellion that comes in as well. But the irony is, whether you are thinking you're in control with the diet or the calorie burn or the binge or the overeating, you're actually out of control. But we've been conditioned by the diet and the weight loss industry that these are the tactics you use to lose weight and keep it off. And once you lose weight, you'll finally be happy. And that was so programmed into us from such a young age in school, Hollywood media, etc. So you have to understand when our subconscious mind has been so programmed that this is the way and this is all that's available, and they keep selling their shiny marketing to convince you, right? And they can feed off desperate people. That's what they do. We then get hard on ourselves and think, oh, I don't have willpower. There's something wrong with me. So maybe I'll try that new thing and I can have control with that. And what's below the control? Fear, worry, anger. And what's below that? I don't feel good enough. And when we don't feel good enough, we try to grip for control. When we build our worth, there are a lot of areas you start to release control with because you're building trust. You have belief in yourself. You have faith in your abilities. You know you're worthy and capable and deserve to have everything you want in your life. But it's hard to surrender and let go of control and allow more flow and more of that feminine energy when we are questioning ourselves and we don't feel good enough. We feel disconnected. You feel your body's out to get you, whatever the stories are, right, based on your experiences. And so we stay in that control. So because it's safe, like even though you're hurting yourself, whether you're punishing with restriction, over exercise, or binging or emotionally eating, it's a comfort zone. If you've been doing it and you know it as a comfort, even though you're hurting yourself, you will keep going back to what is familiar when you're stressed because, again, you've convinced yourself that you think you have control. So it's a very multifaceted, like complex, like chemical, physical, emotional, neurotransmitter, hormonal, like so many things are going on within us that keep reverting us back there to that quote unquote false sense of control.
Yeah, and that ain't sexy either.
No. And
Right?
it
So that's
impacts your relationships. Like I
yes.
was a control freak in my first
Yeah.
relationship and even somewhat going into my second, and I learned how to release all of that because he wasn't having it. And I realized, wow, this is my insecurities and I need to work on this. It's nothing he's doing. So yeah.
Well, because this is a good segue into like how it impacts dating, right?
Yeah.
Because what we're talking about is when you're in that sense of control and perfectionism and rigidity,
Yes.
there is kind of a lack of feminine energy there with it, right?
Yes.
So it becomes actually masculine energy
Yes.
and it can manifest in different ways. I would love for you to share, maybe even from your own personal experiences, like how it impacted you in dating and all these different aspects.
Oh yeah, totally. So when I and what you talked about earlier, like the weight gain, the protective layer so that you don't get hurt. So that's essentially what would happen is I would lose control, gain weight because I met someone, it didn't work out, there was disappointment, or I was broken up with, or I was like, I'm not attracted to them. And then I would find myself going back to binge eating, not yet realizing the pattern of like, I'm unconsciously doing this to protect myself from getting hurt or disappointed again. And then, of course, I would meet someone new and it would kind of like be an indirect motivator to be like, let's get in shape, let's lose weight. Maybe I'll gain control. And this is the guy that'll fix me, even though he doesn't know he's fixing me. And it's like I put all this unconscious responsibility on him, right? Or I'd be hard on myself if they broke up with me, like, oh, it's because I need to lose 10 pounds. I wasn't skinny enough. And if I would have been 10 pounds skinnier, it would have just like fixed everything. And I really was so convinced that the weight had such a big impact on that when it did not.
It's easier to think that though,
It is. Oh,
right? Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an easy kind of like scapegoat. I'll just blame it on the weight.
Right.
And then, so, like, as I healed and I was eating a certain way that just felt good for my body, some dates I would go on, men would be critical. What's wrong with you? How come you're not eating this like deep fried whatever thing? How come you're not getting dessert? What's wrong with you? And I'd be like, why aren't you drinking? What's wrong with you? And I'm just thinking, well, I want to treat my body with like support and respect. Like she's my temple. I don't want deep fried food tonight. I don't want dessert tonight. I don't want to drink. I'm healing. I'm feeling better. And I wasn't yet ready to start opening up and like sharing what I had been through with some, because I feel like they wouldn't have, it just, the relationships were going anywhere. I didn't feel like getting vulnerable. And then I'm just thinking, what's wrong with everyone that they're like, what's wrong with me? Because I don't want to like treat my body like a garbage can. Like it just was so interesting to start to see some of the dynamics. But yeah, there was like that weight gain because I would get hurt or it would be a disappointment, and then the weight loss. And I really found that I was attracting a lot of men who were emotionally unavailable because I was emotionally unavailable.
I was
And
just
a
going
lot
to
of,
ask that. I'm
right?
so glad you said that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then men with drinking problems and
Right.
addictions because I was dealing with addiction. And it's funny because I met my husband, who's my soulmate, actually when I was healing my relationship with food. And he was so sweet, but he had his own stuff he was dealing with. Neither of us knew it at the time, but we dated and it just felt so good. And then he broke up with me and it was devastating. And as I healed, though, I had to set a strong boundary because he kept coming, kind of hanging around. I'm like, I love you. You don't love me back. I can't see you or like be around you because I'm never going to get over you and be able to find the person I'm meant to be with. And so I had to set that boundary and disconnect from him. And then 3 years he came back and it was just the right time. And 10 years later, here we are and we have an incredible relationship. But I had to learn how to love myself. And once I did, he literally came back into the picture like 2 months later.
Can I
And
ask
that,
you a question
yeah.
about that? Sorry to interrupt you just because it's so perfect in what you said about like you kind of broke the pattern with him. Obviously, there
Yeah.
was other issues. In that moment, did you almost, because I see this happen a lot, almost not trust that that was going to be like something?
Oh,
And
totally.
yeah, yeah, because that's the thing. Like then when you find something that's kind of healthy, you're like, oh no. And then
Yeah.
I would love for you to just also tap on that too, because how you kind of got over that, that's hard to break
Yeah,
old
it was
pattern.
very hard because when you intuitively feel like you found your mate and then they leave and then you're like, I have to set this boundary because you don't want to be with me the same way I want to be with you. It's so hard. And then
Yeah.
you question your worth. You question like, why? Like, I'm here to give my heart. Why aren't they not on the same page? And we have to trust timing because to be honest, it probably wouldn't have worked out if we would have tried to keep dating like that 3 years previous because he was dealing with his own like kind of addiction, unworthiness, depression issues. And I was dealing with my stuff, just neither of us knew about it because we didn't get deep enough in. And so there was evolution for both of us to go through. And also, right? Like for him, he missed his family and he thought maybe he would move home and he didn't want to like hurt me if he decided to do that. So there's just all these different dynamics. And so I had to like, it took some time to really let it go. And I had to learn how to detach. And that's been like a huge theme through all my healing is loving detachment and like trusting what is meant to be will be. And if it's not, something better will come along. And really, as you heal and you claim your worth, you gain a new standard. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I mean it in a loving, respectful, confident way of like, I deserve to be treated like this. I
Yes.
deserve an equal exchange of energy, someone who's going to show up emotionally for me just as I am for them. I want someone who loves and respects themselves just as I love and respect myself. And sometimes, again, some growing up is required, or maybe he needed to go back out and get a taste of the dating world and realize, right? Like that's what he
How
always says to
awesome
me.
you
He's like,
are.
I went back out there and then he's like, what am I doing? He's like, and then he's like, I realized like you were the one, right? So but yeah, there was all that awareness and the boundary setting and then I had to get over my fear of abandonment when he came back. I'm like, is he gonna do it again? Like,
That's right, right.
right? Should I open my heart again? And he was so it was incredible. He acknowledged it and he apologized and he's like, I mean my word with this, I will never hurt you like that again. And then he asked me to be
Mm.
his girlfriend. And then 2 weeks later, he was telling me he loves me. And we moved in a month later, and it just has evolved. And we've grown and evolved so much together. Like, he's the only guy that wasn't intimidated that I had a successful business, right? Taking on all my health habits. He's healthier. Like, he just is so supportive. So, all of that has just been incredibly important.
And is he emotionally available?
Oh my goodness. Yes, he wasn't in the beginning. He would like shut down and like get upset and hold it all inside. And I slowly helped him open up. And he's so good at being vulnerable now. Sometimes I'm like, he's better than I am. Like I can take some notes from him. It's incredible. And he's calm and he's aware of his inner critic.
Hmm.
Like he listens to different podcasts and stuff where they talk about all of that and he hears me. So it's like we're on the same page and we grow together. And I think that's one of the most incredibly important things in your relationship that you're open to growing together because one of the things I see with my clients, and this is going on with two of my clients right now, is they've been in marriages for 30 or 40 plus years. And because they haven't fully healed that unworthiness and insecurity and the people pleasing,
Hmm.
they are afraid to lovingly speak up or point something out or have a difficult conversation or get vulnerable with their husbands. So this
Mm.
resentment and anger and turnoff has like been building up inside of them. They're like, I'm not happy. I'm thinking about leaving. And I'm like, well, before you do, like, have you talked to him? Like, have you shared how you feel? Have you opened up? Because all this built up emotion, suppression creates depression. Like, and so the beauty of it is as they build their worth, as they heal their relationships with food, they're starting to build up the courage to be vulnerable, to open up, to share. And they're having a positive response from their spouse. Their relationships are getting better. They are healing. But you can't just sit there and hold everything inside and be emotionally unavailable and expect your relationship to be good. You have to communicate and talk and be willing to talk even if there's a bit of heat. It's like we don't yell, we don't call each other names. We would never do that. We can have conversations, but we're both aware of that, what I call that ego mind, and when it gets triggered, and we can both acknowledge it and not have it explode into something. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder too, because I'm always helping people in the kind of the beginning stages, right, of trying to find a relationship. And I always say, like, in order to change your story, change your pattern, you have to go back to the beginning of the script,
Yes,
right?
you
Like
do.
the minute you say hello. And so I was just curious because you were talking about mirrors, right? Like you kept
Yeah.
attracting what you were basically until you didn't. And I wondered when you attracted your guy, did you find yourself like letting go more, being more in your feminine, being more flirty? Did you like, was there any kind of evolution with that happened?
Yeah, I got so vulnerable and so much more in the flow. It's funny because as I healed, I thought, oh, I have to be so independent and like I don't need that. I'm making my own money. I'm doing good, like whatever. And in the beginning, I was really in that state and I realized, wow, like I want to ask for more help. I want to lean back and like let him help more. I want to acknowledge the fact that he is so protective and he helps keep me feel safe and like and realizing as I did that and he like loved it so much and like just kept opening up more and more, I'm like, wow, like this is so important for me. And of course, if you're resistant to like opening up about something or something really vulnerable, you're pushed. God, source, universe just keeps
Mhm.
pushing you until like you have an experience where you have no choice. And anytime I've had to be incredibly vulnerable with him, he meets me with the most kind, loving, nurturing energy. And he's so supportive and so sweet. And it's because if you have experiences with previous relationships or like, bless my dad's heart, but we had a lot of arguments around certain things that he'll meet me with in a loving, respectful way. And so you have those wounds that you carry of, ooh, I'm afraid to share. I'm going to get like received in this poor way. And when you start actually opening up and realizing you're getting received in the way that you want to be, it also heals some of those old wounds. And again, just keeps deepening the relationship. So yeah, asking for more help. Like, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, like, and now he's like, hey, yeah, are you going to the store later? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I want to come with you because I just like to be your protector. And I'm like, yeah, totally. I love it. Like, it's just, he fills my gas tank. He's like, the man should do this. I'm like, I'm totally good with that. Like, I love that. But then at the same token, we both clean the house. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
I have to cook and clean and right. So it's just incredibly amazing the equal exchange of energy that we have. And it's really like built over the last 10 years, but it just keeps getting better and better and better. And like, I used to be the attached relationship style, so that my fear of abandonment was huge, and I had to heal all of that because it wasn't him, it was me. And so being able to heal that and be at peace and feel so secure is so freeing. But I had to build my worth first to then be able to step into healing that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just so important for people to know, like, if there's healing to do in your relationship, like you got to look at where you are at with your self-worth first and heal some of that stuff because it's gonna then to me like ripple out into that dynamic because if we're not doing that and then we're blaming, projecting, it's not me, it's like we've got to own our stuff and see what is ours as well.
Yeah, and then also being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? Like
Yes,
as you're
yes.
shifting and changing and trying these new things, because like you're gonna, you can't change the other people, but you can
No.
do things to change yourself to get a different result, as I always say. And
Yeah.
I love that you did that. I love that you like were in that more receiving energy that you
Hmm.
got to practice with him. It's so awesome. That's why I always say like even as you're working on yourself, like you'll hear me at the end of the podcast, I always say dating is working on yourself. Like
Yeah.
going out on a bunch of dates is you're learning so much about yourself, but you also can like change habits that you are
Yes.
so used to. Like you said, I mean, we all have default buttons. So we all go
Yeah.
back to what we know, what we're confident in, good, bad, or indifferent. It's just familiar based on our family system. So I love
Yes.
that you overrid some of that programming and now you have this like great guy. I mean, I'm looking at the time, I'm like, oh my God, where did it go already? I could go on and on with you. Any like quick tips maybe to leave people with? What I was thinking about, like anybody listening to this, and they're like, "Gosh, I know this is me,"
Hmm.
but they don't know like how to get motivated to change, right? Like they're
Yeah.
kind of still in what I would call victim mode.
Yeah.
Um, are there any like quick tips that you could give around that to help them?
Yeah, totally. So I think there's a few different avenues you can take. So the first thing is just acknowledge, just be honest with yourself about what you're doing. It's just being authentic is the first step in owning it and going, you know what? I'm doing this. Yeah, there's maybe external things triggering me, but I'm the one choosing to put the food in my mouth and to keep in this dialogue. And I'm just going to own that. I'm going to have love and compassion. And then from there, it's like, okay, let's start building awareness. So before you go to food, ask yourself, do I actually need to physically eat or is this emotional hunger? Because you're going to quickly realize, wow, so much of this is emotional. And then the second part of it is be willing to start to dedicate little bits of time to start exploring your emotions. 30-second timer. It's a game changer. Start writing down your triggers. How am I feeling? Why do I want to go to food? What is this really about? Why does my body not feel safe? Why is she wanting to protect and put on the weight? We need to start with questions and reflection because if we don't take time to question and build awareness, we're not going to become in tune and realize why we're doing what we're doing. And that's going to be harder to change. So start with those things and start dedicating a little bit of time to yourself in a self-care practice because that's where you start to really connect with yourself, build worth, get grounded, get out of your head and into your heart. And that's part of the fuel that is going to help you feel good enough and help boost your confidence and help you process through emotions. So, those to me are some places to start and to really, even if it's hard to believe right now, it's like you deserve to have it all. You deserve to attract everything you want and have the health, the relationship, the worth, everything. And it's just like work toward feeling worthy to create it and receive it for yourself.
Yes. Like what, like snap, snap. No, so good. Because you know what? This is not about the man. It's not about the
No.
woman. This is about you listening. And when, it's not until you look in the mirror and you say, I got it going on. I'm the best.
Yeah.
I'm good enough. I'm sexy as hell. That's
Yeah.
when other people will find that too, right? Like, so it
100%.
is, that's the control. That's the
Yeah.
almost like the ironic part of it, right? In
Totally.
a good way. So, Amber, thank you so much. Please tell everybody how they can find you. I know you have your own podcast, obviously.
Yeah. So the podcast is the No Sugarcoating Podcast, and you can find it on all podcast apps as well as on my website, which is amberapproved.ca. If you're wondering if you're struggling with emotional eating, I have a free quiz as well as a free emotional eating workshop that you can take to build some awareness. And then I have a consultation, which is 30 minutes. So if you want to come and connect on Zoom, it is complimentary and we can talk about what your struggles are, hormones, emotional eating, self-worth, and talk about why maybe a different approach could work for you. And then I'm on social media, Instagram at Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Amber, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
And thank you for listening and joining me today. This has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, of course, Kimmy Seltzer. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And as you heard, when emotional eating and body image struggles acts as a shield for you, love shield specifically, They don't just keep you safe from rejection or hurt, they also block you from intimacy, playfulness, and sexy confidence that makes dating so fun and effective. So, if emotional eating or body image struggles have been holding you back in love, I have something cool coming up that I think would be a great next step. It's my virtual speed dating event. I only do them twice a year, so definitely like hop on if you can come. This is not your typical speed dating. It's a little bit different. It's fun, it's interactive, and I pick out some matches for you to go on dates with. It's hand selected by me. You get coached, but you also get feedback on how you're coming across and learning some flirt skills and dating skills along the way. And it will make dating fun after you join. It's super fun. You'll leave not just with new connections, but real tools that will make you feel fun and flirty. So spots are limited though. Definitely, go to stophatingdating.com. That's stophatingdating.com. And I cannot wait to see you there. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.